Hello everyone, this is my independent, unsponsored, and unscripted review of the LEGO Star Wars Ultimate Collector Series Razor Crest. Now, I bought this for its full retail price of $600 US, and of course built it all live over on my Twitch channel, where I'm still averaging 120 hours per month of LEGO set building, custom LEGO building, and also on Sundays and Mondays, Gundams and other high quality plastic model builds, and you're invited. This set is made with 6,187 pieces and comes with 3 full minifigures plus a little Grogu here. The length, tip to tip, is 29 inches approximately, or 72 centimeters. And I do need to show you something here real quick for a brief comparison. Yeah, between this and what I had thought was a perfectly fine minifig compatible rendition that we got previously. Yeah, it's not even close, and it's not just about the size here, it's also about just the completeness and the realism of this one. So let me get this out of here and the figures as well. The build process for this set was surprisingly simple. Obviously, there are a lot of pieces here, so it takes quite a bit of time, but you do not need to be an advanced LEGO builder to successfully complete this. As a matter of fact, I think you can be relatively new to LEGO because it just doesn't have a lot of frustrating parts where you need to align things just right, where you need to know some tricks of how LEGO works mechanically, you know, some of the tricks of the individual pieces and getting them aligned and such. It just felt smooth throughout, and there aren't areas where you really slow down and it becomes a slog and then it speeds up. It just felt, what I kept saying was, nicely paced throughout and consistent. If I remember correctly, there were only 2 times during this build when I put something together and then kind of stopped and just looked at what I had just assembled and thought, wow, now that's cool. That is something completely unexpected. That said, though, there were plenty of satisfying moments throughout, such as when all these different angles come together. I mean, this is angled differently. This is angled on a different plane. This is a completely different assembly here. This is all straight, but then it's angled when you view it from the side. All of this stuff coming together, that's just beautiful. That feels good, looks good. The tail section as well, the boom back here, the level of greebling there. It's not too much, it's not too little. I like the fact that a lot of this here is off grid because of the angles here, but along the way, each of the sub-assemblies is straightforward and just uses normal pieces and pretty normal connection techniques with few exceptions. I experienced very little frustration throughout the assembly process. The single thing that I have the least confidence in from a stability perspective is just this little sub-assembly here, which is purely cosmetic. The landing gear themselves, I regret to inform you, are not able to be retracted. It would take a significant amount of modification to take those off now that it's all put together because they're really tied in there. It's a very heavy thing and they're very small gear to be able to hold the weight, but I'm confident in those. You just have to be careful not to grab this stuff here while you're moving this around, if you move it around, because this is clipped on with just a couple of small clips, but everything else feels good to me and it closes up so nicely. Yes, there are some gaps in there, but given the angles that I'm looking at, I'm just not unhappy about it. I guess this is the first time that I've looked at this directly from the side. I can see a little bit of light through there, you know, so to nitpick, I don't like that right there. I wish there was one small piece on the other side. And there's a tiny gap here as well, which you do notice while putting it together. But once it's together from any reasonable distance, it just doesn't stand out to me. One thing that does stand out in a negative way, though, is the difference of the gray color right here. That. For the sticker, you see, that's a sticker, that's a sticker. These are all just pieces put together. Up here, stickers are used. The yellow color, which is actually the Keat orange color, the flame, sorry about the focus there, flame yellowish orange color is good, but the gray is clearly not and is definitely visible from a distance. I know there are people who are very forgiving of color differences like that, and some even treat it like a desirable feature because, you know, the real Razor Crest in universe is all scraped up and scratched up, and it's, well, was it's really scratched up now, but, you know, had been through a lot of stuff and had a lot of wear on the outside. So technically it's better. The more color differences you have, the less consistency you have in parts, different parts of your $600 toy here, the better. I soundly reject that argument. You know, this is an expensive toy. We are told that we're getting premium stuff, we should expect premium stuff. And if they want to show differences in color, then they should intentionally make different colors. The canopy here is done with, thankfully, prints, at least for the sides, because these side bits here, this is one piece here, this is one piece here, and those have prints. But then a sticker is used for just the little cross piece in between, and that's a fine match. Like, all of this to me looks just fine. There is a little bit of wobble here, but when I was first assembling this before putting the guns on, it was a ton of wobble, and I was really worried about that. But as it turns out, the cannons here on the sides actually clamp together a couple of the side panels, which is pretty brilliant and helps to tighten everything up. I really don't like some of the detail inside there, though. It just looks a little bit too open to me and too different from the texture of the rest of the ship. These engines, though, are largely built with techniques borrowed from the Saturn V rocket, which is a good thing because those techniques were very effective for the shape. And the size of this is very similar as well. The diameter is very similar, so it all works out. And, you know, you end up with some fairly smooth curves there. You got the Harley Davidson wheel used back here. And this is a new color. The light gray is a new color for these narrow chain link pieces. Yeah, there are a bunch of them, but honestly, it didn't feel that annoying. Again, I mentioned previously, it felt fairly consistent going through the process of building the whole thing. Yes, you do have to put a bunch of these links together, but you only do one of these chains, and then you work on a whole bunch of other stuff before you do the next. It's not like they have you do the whole main brick and plate structure first, and then do all the chains, so the pacing just felt nice, felt comfortable to me. These you do have to kind of line up just right, but you know, it works out. It's successful enough, and you do get a little bit of glow right there at the end. Maybe just a little bit more coverage in here would have been nice, but I don't know what parts would have been good to fill in some of the gaps there. Since I've brought you to the rear again, let me show you the rear ramp and how that's able to come down. You do have to get a finger in there, but this comes down part way, and then the hydraulic rams, or simulated hydraulic rams, start to activate. You have to work against them. Technic mechanism up above for the rest. Yeah, there's a little bit of squeak in there right now, but for the rest of the retraction. And then this is a fairly consistent surface here. It is anti-studs, so it's difficult to get figures attached there without using like sticky tack or something like that, but at least it looks pretty appropriate. And then towards the front, there are side doors, which are completely flush. Like, all of this is completely on grid, on system for the sideways building of this entire section of panel right here. And yet this opens up and it doesn't get stuck in there. There's enough clearance that it's able to be completely flush in the spot. And then this comes out, and there's an additional little ramp comes out from there as well. Once again, anti-studs here. You do have studs just inside, so you can have somebody pose right there, but this is all anti-stud, so it's difficult to get a figure attached to that. But again, it looks good, and most importantly, when it's closed up, which is what most people are going to be seeing most of the time, it looks fantastic. This moves a tiny bit. You saw down there's a little bit of looseness. Not an issue. It is connected well enough on the top, and its position with the two angles, angled in as viewed from the top and angled in as viewed from the front, work just right and minimize the gaps. Up top, like with the smaller version, there's an escape pod here, which comes out, and that has enough space to put a single figure in there. This is one of the coolest techniques used on the entire set. These two 1x2 tiles in perfect clear color are not attached to anything. They're just held in place. They're actually clamped down by these tile pieces here. So it's just sitting in that space. Each of those clear tiles is, and this is able to open up to have a figure put inside. The entire canopy and forward roof section is just sitting there. It's not attached with any studs whatsoever. It's loose. That's why I was mentioning earlier the ability for this to move around a little bit, but it's located from the sides with a couple of tiles up front. And then here you have the 1x2 panel and the 1x2 jumper that just help to get that kind of keyed into place, and it works well enough. I'm not worried about it falling off as it is, and it just lifts off for easy access to the interior. The upper level here is nice with lots of printed consoles with different designs around there. The captain's chair is able to swivel a bit from side to side. You can also adjust the recline on it as well as the headrest separately. This is supposed to represent the little gear shift lever looking thing that, Grogu is so interested in. Unfortunately, they don't have just an individual ball piece that Grogu could hold on to, but you needed to have that feature there generally. And a lot of this is very, very closely related, just scaled down to Lego minifigure scale to what's in the actual Razor Crest, set space. The dark red color is new for these regular chairs, so that's good to see. And there are a couple of studs here so you can have figures walking around. And then there's this access door, which is plate built up and attached from the side. So you can open that to get a suggestion of the ability to move rearward. A little difficult to see from this angle, but there's a ladder there with access down to the lower level, which is appropriate. A little bit of a platform area or plateau here with some more floor space where you can put the Baby Yoda baby carriage if you want to, and this is supposed to represent Frog Lady's eggs in their incubation and transportation chamber there. That can be removed, and there's a little bit of extra space on top, a couple clips to hold minifigure accessories, and they also have practically overhead cabin space here, so you could potentially put some additional accessories in here on the sides. Now, what I didn't show you is the fact that all of this back here can simply be lifted out for even easier access, so that's good, not including the captain's chair area. And now you can see all the way down to the mostly finished and smooth lower floor. All the way up front is a space to sleep, so just a single person bed there. No toilet though. If there's any one thing I'm disappointed about with this set, it's the lack of any suggestion of a toilet. After all, the Razor Crest was the very first thing in the Star Wars universe to show us how toilets work in space in the Star Wars universe, and well, this doesn't have it. It's a missed opportunity. I know that they considered it, but they decided to focus on getting the bed right, or very usable instead, which I guess is okay, but I mean, come on, they put a pink flower on a tiger. They can put a toilet in a Razor Crest, and they didn't. Fail. Nah. At the very least, underneath that bed, which is easy to remove, you have a little bit of suggestion of wiring. So that's an idea of where Grogu was, crawling under the floorboards to mess around with stuff when everything was wrong. It's more difficult to see from this side looking back at the lower floor there. And you're not able to access all that stuff via just the rear ramp, which is why the designer made this happen so daggone easily. All of this, and this is heavy. This is very heavy and solid here. All this comes up, it's only attached with 2 studs. It sits in place, it's really easy to get it located. So again, no frustrations there. Even coming at this from the wrong angle, it just settles right in where it needs to be. But when you need to get access in there, you want to see what's going on, you can just lift that off, put the engines down to the side. This section also lifts off, as does this. They're just sitting there. Okay, that helps a ton. Also, suddenly, this whole thing that's left over is much easier to move around and much lighter. On the right there is a carbon freezing chamber, the little portable style one, a couple of carbonite blocks over here on clamps on the sides, and these are able to kind of shift around. So as this angles in flight and everything, as the G-forces hit it, you can imagine these moving around a little bit. And there are the 2 bounties. So this one right here we got in the original smaller version of the Razor Crest, and this is one that we did not. You got a little detail on the side. This all just looks so much better than simply hanging a 1x2x5 brick. To the rear of that, hey, look at that. It's a hose. If they could put a hose in this space, they could have put one up front to represent the hose for the toilet. I'm just saying. And a clip on the side to hold an extra gun. On the floor down there is I forget if it's a reactor generator or a heater or both, but a nice little sub-assembly. Off to the side are some crates, including some printed Imperial crates, which are the gift box style with some thermal detonators inside, just the regular ones that you're used to by now. All of this cabinetry on the side is able, thankfully, to be removed easily, so you can just pull that out. It's a whole sub-assembly, and then you can look inside. This is a nice compact build. Got the whole cabinet here with some different types of firearms inside, and up top is just a little something that Lego added in to be cute. It's the baby on board sign for Grogu. Now those there, of course, are pieces of Boba Fett's recovered getup, and a lot of Star Wars fans were so unhappy to see these pieces included here because, according to most folks, this is like an episode 1 or episode 2 version of the Razor Crest, and those don't belong in episode 1 or episode 2. So here's what you do. You reach in there, you take these pieces that you don't want to see right now, and you take them out. There. Fixed. Misplaced rage is, as usual, misplaced. And no, LEGO did not take this opportunity to give us an updated, reforged version of the helmet in dark green because, well, technically that would have been even more wrong. Now you can lift off this rearmost section of roof as well. It's only attached with a couple of, there we go, studs, 4 studs with the jumpers right here, but that doesn't really give you much more usable access. While I have everything open, I also wanted you to see what it looks like close to the minifig eye level, just looking in through the rear ramp. I did add a light up above to help to highlight things, but if you do have decent lighting in your space, you know, the top does open up enough that that light will get in there so you can realistically see. Here's one bad note on the topic of bright colors used for interior structures, though. The bottom of this is not sealed up. It would be very easy to seal this up with just regular plates, but it's not sealed up. And so if you get an aftermarket stand for this that tries to put it into a landing pose or a taking off pose, or if you even go through the trouble of customizing it up to take the landing gear off to make it look like it's in flight, and then you're able to see the underside of this, you know, because it's angled or it's up higher or something, that's not a good look. I think that the designer should have included extra pieces to cover up this stuff. I'm fine with the colors being there, but they should have been covered up just for the sake of all the people who are going to want to display this differently or up above. Let's take a few minutes to look at other stuff included in the set, starting with this whole stand, which has the standard UCS placard there. I don't believe they made any mistakes on this one this time. This one still uses a sticker. We all know by now that in the future they will be using only prints for these, finally. And this holds the figures plus the baby carriage and the blurg. Let's look at that. This has an exclusive printed eyepiece, one for either side, and then there's a small sticker used on the top right there in the center, which works just fine. I've seen a lot of people argue that this should have been a mold, you know, it should have been a specialized molded animal. And while I like LEGO's specialized animal molds, I don't feel like the blurg really deserved that much attention and that much investment. And I personally actually really like when they do small brick builds that are kind of cool like this, like the Microfighter, the Tauntaun, and the Bantha. I think that this kind of fits in with those, although this is a little bit more realistic scaled by intent. It was a cool build. It had a lot of pieces in it, actually surprising number of pieces. It has a little bit of articulation with the arms there. The tail is able to kind of wag side to side and kind of rotate it slightly as well. The mouth is not able to open and close, but the head can go up and down just a little bit. Let's see, I thought there was a little bit more than that. That's about it. It can also turn from side to side. I think that this thing is charming. I've got the little spot for the figure to stand down in there. They don't include pieces to fill that up. So if you want to show a blurg without a saddle set up, you know, they don't have you set up for that. But I think this is cool, and this does fit inside of the cargo, you know, space inside of the Razor Crest, along with everything else. They also have the levitating little personal ride for Grogu here, which I think is about as small as they possibly could have gotten it. You know, it's a little bit snug around the figure, but it's still able to be turned. The body can actually be turned, not just the head inside of there, but, you know, it's just a 2x2 jumper of space down there, and the color is the flame yellowish orange on the inside. You know, it's got that egg white and egg yolk kind of look. They do include this clear dish piece down here, and it's kind of offset, which makes it feel a little bit more like this is kind of floating forward to me. You know, it just feels a little bit more detached as opposed to a setup where the stand is directly underneath of it and it's just on display. I like this thing. It's small, it's simple, but it's really effective. This is a new version of early show Mando as an exclusive done right, a UCS exclusive done right, because you can get early versions of Mando. They're out there. This is just a slightly better one, and it's slightly better in a number of ways. First of all, and most obviously, the helmet has a brand new print, and no longer is the visor creeping its way down towards the chin. Also, it's got nicer printing around the sides with the darkening in of the indents and the ridge printed in across the top. Extra lines printed in there. It would be a lot more obvious if they used the lighter color, but this is just about as good as I think Lego can do with their current processes and with this part. It's not a different mold, it's just a different print, which is much better. Also, this has the printed arms on it. So that is 100% all good. Comparing this just really quickly to the one that we got originally with the first Razor Crest, you can see there are a lot of similarities there, but the helmet is just so much better. This also has the skin tone and face print underneath. There's no alternate face for that, but they do include, thankfully, a hairpiece for him, which is a little bit questionable to me. I don't know if they have a better hairpiece, a better matching hairpiece, but it's okay. Just it doesn't completely scream Din Djarin to me personally. Looking at the back of this, there's your print for the back of the torso. On the left, Quill is a very desirable new figure, but I have some questions about the design decisions. The production on this one is very, very good. That is not a dual molded head. All of the hat there, all the leather is actually printed on, and it's masked pretty well. He also has some of the gray or white hair. The goggles are printed on there really, really well, including a metallic rim around it. But just the shaping of it, the molding doesn't quite look right to me. It doesn't look to me like Quill Legoified, especially since Lego figures in general have very vertically squished proportions. This one actually feels the opposite. It feels like it's lengthened, like it's taller than it should be. In the middle is the Mithrol. One of the first bounties that we see picked up by Din Djarin. And this one also has some questionable decisions with it. Certainly, he could have used a brand new exclusive head mold, but that's another case where I think he doesn't really deserve it just to have this one figure and that's it. It wasn't that important of a character. I personally am okay with them using just an exclusive print on a regular head, but I don't feel like that head really captures the character well. Just personally, I feel like it could have used a lot more of the dark blue, more to get shaping or suggestion of shaping and depth in there. Facial expression itself doesn't really capture the essence of the character's personality, and I know that Lego probably did not have, well, maybe they did not know at this time what the personality of the character was going to be, but that just doesn't look like it to me. And then Grogu is Grogu, Also, there's a quick look at the rest of the back print for Quill. For a set with almost 6,200 pieces, this is not a large volume of leftovers, and I did pull off to the side just the extras from that one little accessory bag from which they used just one of these for the Boba Fett helmet. Also, I think something that's very telling here is how few Technic pins there are to spare, because there is some mostly Technic brick-based construction to the core and the frame of the Razor Crest, but so much of it is traditional brick building, including stuff on the side, but it just doesn't rely a whole lot on the Technic stuff. The sticker sheet, on the other hand, is pretty significant in its size, and most of those stickers were used for outside panel bits. You can see that the carbonite blocks were right here, and obviously the big main plaque is here, but most of this was used for the yellow stripes and the wear marks on the outside of the fuselage. Looking at price and value, again, this was $600 US. It's 600 euros, 520 pounds UK, 760 Canadian dollars for 6,187 pieces. Price to part ratio looks great, especially when you look at the spare parts that I showed you, how few of them there are in the 1x1 size. The average size of piece in this set is much larger, much greater than in probably most sets these days, actually. It has fewer little tiny 1x1s for detail and such than normal. So in total, relative to today's Lego big buck expensive sets, This one does give you, I think, some pretty decent value, and it certainly looks nice. It's also relatively easy to move around. It doesn't feel like a pain to own, and also having that feature where you can easily take a significant amount of weight and width out for transport, just like that, real easy without having to worry about it. It really, really helps this to be a more livable thing, something that's easier to actually own in a potentially reasonable space. Also, the distance between like one edge of it, one far edge to the side, to the engine, and the opposite side landing gear. So basically the amount of depth that you need for a shelf in order to hold this is not too significant. I think it's in the range of about 15 inches. So it's a lot easier to have this and to find a place to display it than, for example, the gunship or the UCS Millennium Falcon. Doesn't have the height of the walker, which also is very difficult to move around because there's very few spots where you can safely touch it and support its weight. It feels comfortable. It looks really good too, but still, it is $600. It's $600 US. And there are a lot of Lego fans out there who can just toss $600 on a counter on a whim and just buy that. There are a lot of people out there who are very well to do, and good for them. Many people are not, though, but are still into cool stuff and nerdy stuff and Star Wars and sci-fi and display models and things. And so for me, I still have to look at the value of $600 US compared to what you get here. Look back to the HasLab, the Hasbro crowdfunded project that they did to create a large one of these. I don't think that one was quite this big, but it's pretty close and way more realistic, of course. Also silver, not gray like this one, and cost like half as much, a little bit more than half. What was it? $330 to $350. I think it was $350 US or something near this size. If you really wanted a big Razor Crest, that was the one to get. This does give you the building experience, though, of course. But something of this size, I don't feel has quite as much value wrapped up into the building experience as a smaller set that you're more likely to actually take apart or rebuild or make some adjustments to. You do the build once here. It's not an amazing building experience. Like I said, really, it's fine. It feels like you assembled it, but it doesn't feel like, at least to me, it didn't feel like I learned much from this. It didn't feel like I was inspired by the design too much. It didn't feel like I was in awe as I went through it. It was just like, okay, I put this together and then I put those. Oh, they fit. Nice. Okay, cool. And then next thing, the pacing of it was just very, very consistent and very, very flat, kind of low key through it. So the build experience of this didn't provide that much extra value to me personally, even as someone who's obviously a super, super Lego fan. Been super Lego fan for a long time. If you like what you see and you've got $600 to just throw on the table to buy a display model, I think you'll be very satisfied with this. It is good. I think it is better in person than in videos. It was better for me than when I really, really looked at it carefully, looking at pictures and videos of it, especially high quality photos, and really trying to imagine what it looked like in person. I thank very much all the folks who voted on this channel and also on the old JANG Bricks channel for me to buy this instead of many other sets that came out on October or near October 1st, 2022. I appreciate you putting your support behind the purchase of this over all of those things, because I was going to do all of those things instead of this. But I'm glad that I did this because it is better than I thought it was going to be. And I hope that many of you will enjoy having this, again, independent and unsponsored look at it. And I hope that I've provided some value to you. Also, really, really appreciated the experience of hanging out with all the folks over on Twitch during the live build session. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that I've done something to help you to make, come to some conclusion, or even if you're not considering buying this, I hope that I showed it to you well enough and showed you enough about it that you feel a little bit more like you've experienced it, a little bit more like its ins, its outs, the pros and cons of it. Thank you for sticking around. this long, for this long review. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.